Good day to you. My name is Benjamin Shelton. Currently an Air Force Chaplain Recruit, and I'm endorsed by the Liberty Baptist Fellowship. I wanted to make a quick video to briefly detail my recent history and what I believe is a call to serve as an Air Force Chaplain Recruit. One way I'm going to go about that is just to tell the brief narrative of how this came about. To understand how this came about, I want to first take you back to age 12 when I was really, I believe, impacted and called to a life of service. I was compelled to a life of service really because as a person who believes in biblical Christianity, I essentially believe that there's a God who serves people through whom he gets much glory in doing that. So when I was hearing this message of a God who loves people who are broken and who are in need of help, assistance, and direction, and the ultimate good change, at first I was skeptical, sometimes hard-hearted, but eventually all that was overcome. And with God's help, the message of a God who serves people really struck my heart. And I said I needed that. And I believe that came through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And then when I understood that as an essential basis and fundamental nature of the Christian message, it really started then where I started to have a desire to serve people. That happened at age 12, but it was only amplified as I grew in this at ages 17 and 18 as an undergraduate freshman. I was part of a church called First Baptist Church, and the pastor there did a really good job, I believe, of pushing me to see that those who have been served by this God, then in response with gratitude, skill, care, and wisdom, should turn and then serve others. So in this church, I served faithfully for about 10 years. And I started as just a college kid who stumbled in, trying to look for a good church and some people who would love me and feed me. And eventually, I was grown into someone who understood that through, and gifted, and through particular gifts I had of teaching, preaching, leading, and helping people to get this message as the center of their life, as well as in general, love and compassionate, tangible, compassionate care for those who may not embrace it. That was something I would be doing, and I really dove into it and got involved, and eventually became an associate pastor. I don't want to skip by that because really this is a significant part of the direction of my life. My undergraduate degree is in biology, and I did not envision being a pastor as a vocational calling, but what ended up happening is I really seemed to be not only able to do this work, but with God's help, gifted in some areas to do this work. And the people who I was helping have benefited, and their lives seem to be going in a healthy and helpful direction. And not just for them, but also for their neighbors and communities. So that kind of covers the backdrop of how I was called to be served by God through Jesus Christ, and then also kind of how the initial calling to serve where. By the way, that calling to church has really helped grow in me the service of the first church that I was really a part of an undergraduate, which is the second church I was a part of in my life. I did have a home church that my parents went to, but that was really significant in fueling my desire to help locally, tangibly, in people's lives. And so, if you fast forward a few years, about 5 years, my time at First Baptist Church in Garrettsville, which is the church I mentioned when I was in undergraduate studies, was really fostered and then sparked again a real desire to serve a particular type of people. I was ordained twice, once generally to what they call gospel ministry. It's just, it was along with the licensure to do weddings and to do funerals and to administer the Lord's Supper and baptism as a pastor. But I was ordained again as an elder of a local church called City Church. It's now called City Church. It was once Gateway Heights Church. And I had a particular sense that God was pushing me to serve a particular type of people. Often those people were overlooked or underserved or needed someone to really come close to them, to love them, to point them to wisdom, and to help them grow, to be healthy individuals who would help grow healthy communities. And so there I really honed in on this idea of who was God pushing me to. And through the years and through that experience, I think what I really learned, because I started working as a hospice chaplain too, part-time, is that God was pushing me to help serve those who are underserved and in moments of crises or needing particular direction. There's a passage of scripture in Luke 7 that really helps cement this idea of God pushing me to serve a particular group of people. And this group of people who are underserved, when I considered Air Force chaplaincy, is really, I believe, is a patriot in Luke chapter 7. If you read Luke chapter 7, you'll find a man who is described as who he loves his nation, and people love him, and he's done significant things for his nation through his governmental involvement in service. But he's in crisis. He has a servant who is getting ready to die, and because of that, he seeks out Jesus' help, and Jesus does help him. The reason why I tell that story is because that's significant to what I believe is this responding to a God who serves by being called to serve people in local expressions, but then particularly people who are, as I think, are underserved or moments of crisis and have particular needs. And so in this case, and God was really pressing my heart that there's a lot of people who oftentimes are underserved by chaplains. People who need not just weddings and ceremony, but they need direction at times. As a hospice chaplain, I've seen people who are just in existential crises, emotional crises. And then sometimes the families will need, as we all do, sometimes we have real crises and are under stress and real duress. Direction. They need a listening ear. They need a compassionate friend who will not just force their beliefs on them, but will help them celebrate their beliefs and help them grow in their beliefs. That's one of my desires to do as an Air Force chaplain. And I see those who are in the Air Force, those who have stepped out for love of their country, and if nothing else, a great sense of call to help the people of their country through service, through sacrifice, much like this Roman centurion in Luke chapter 7. My thought was, who is really going to help them in those moments? And if I looked at my history to this point, as well as considering some of my family's desires and articulations and conversations we had, I really have come to the conclusion that this is a great opportunity and I have a compelling reason and pull to do this type of work in love and service for people. So that just is a concise, brief summary of why I desire at this point to be an Air Force chaplain. My desire is to glorify God through serving the men and women of this country who have served us in so many ways and who do so every day, much of which is overlooked. Through tangible care, particularly in times of crisis, and also to have them have help from the men in arms and the women in arms as a chaplain who can come to bring spiritual help to those who are hurting. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. It's also my hope to speak to you more about this in person in the very near future. I hope you have a good day. Blessings.